Hi everyone, I'm Nora, and welcome to Dark Justice.
Disappearance of Matthew Johnson, a Utah father and husband, and the arrest of his wealthy wife, Jennifer Gledhill, for first-degree murder.
September 28th, Jennifer Gledhill called police to report her husband, Matthew Johnson, missing.
Jen in our home before and, breaking bread with them. And then it turned out that she's responsible for his death. It was shocking, frankly.
Today, we'll step into our first disturbing case. A story of Jennifer Gledhill and Matthew Johnson seemed to have it all. Living in their $1 million home in Cottonwood Heights, Utah, they appeared to be the perfect couple. A devoted military husband and a caring mother, raising 3 young children, ages 11, 7, and 5. Matthew, at 51, wasn't just a father and husband. He was a respected Green Beret in the Utah National Guard's 19th Special Forces Group, a man who had built his life around discipline, loyalty, and service. To everyone who knew him, he was a role model, a leader, and the kind of man people believed would always come home safe. Until the danger came from within his own home. To the outside world, Jennifer Gledhill and Matthew Johnson seemed unshakable. Their $1 million home in Cottonwood Heights was more than just a house. It was a symbol of success, stability, and the picture-perfect family life. Neighbors saw 3 smiling children, a proud military father, and a devoted wife. But appearances, especially in the world of true crime, often hide the darkest truths. Jennifer, at 42, was known as a homebody. To her friends and neighbors, she was kind, quiet, and deeply involved in raising her children. Matthew, on the other hand, was a man admired not only by his family, but by his brothers in arms. A Green Beret with the Utah National Guard's 19th Special Forces Group, Matthew was described as brilliant, dependable, and someone you could always trust for answers. He had served his country for over a decade with honor. He was respected and deeply loved. But inside their home, the perfect image was beginning to collapse. Months before the tragedy, their marriage was already in pieces. Behind closed doors, arguments had grown frequent and bitter. By July 2024, the couple was actively discussing divorce. What had once been a home filled with laughter and the ordinary chaos of raising 3 children now echoed with conflict and resentment. Jennifer would later claim that Matthew was aggressive, even dangerous. In August of that year, she filed for a protective order, telling the court she needed to be protected from her husband. On paper, it seemed like a serious claim, but when the case was reviewed, the truth wasn't so simple. The judge, Commissioner Russell Minus, examined the evidence Jennifer had submitted. Videos and text messages she believed showed her fear of Matthew. But what the court saw was very different. In those videos, Jennifer didn't appear afraid. She was equally confrontational, even provoking. Her text messages to Matthew revealed a darker side, berating, belittling, and taunting him in ways that appeared designed to push him to the edge. The commissioner dismissed the order, writing words that in hindsight now sound haunting. The conduct of the parties is representative of a highly dysfunctional marriage, clearly suggestive that an action for divorce should have been filed long before reaching this current state of affairs. He saw dysfunction, but not abuse. That decision, just days before Matthew's death, would prove to be a fatal one. By September, the tension had reached its breaking point. Matthew's friends noticed how much he had changed in recent weeks. The confident, steady soldier they knew now seemed wary, even fearful. In private, he confessed that Jennifer's erratic behavior had left him uneasy. He spent nights away from home, sleeping at a National Guard facility, afraid for his safety under his own roof. His close friend Kevin Thompson recalled one of their last conversations. Matthew had finally decided divorce was the only way forward. He told Kevin he was ready to move on, but moving on was something Matthew would never get the chance to do, because Jennifer had already made a choice. She wasn't preparing for divorce, she was preparing for murder. The double life and the murder build-up. What Matthew didn't know was that his wife was already living a double life. Jennifer was entangled in an affair. one that wasn't just casual, but consuming. Her secret lover became her escape, her obsession, and ultimately, the person who would unknowingly become a key witness against her. To Jennifer, divorce wasn't enough. She wanted freedom, and she wanted it without the burden of sharing custody, money, or her reputation. And so, in the shadows, a far more sinister plan began to take shape. Just days before the tragedy, Jennifer revealed something chilling to her lover. On September 19th, she showed him a loaded Glock 19X she kept in the house. At the time, he may not have realized its significance. Military families often own firearms, but prosecutors would later reveal this as one of Jennifer's first calculated steps in her plan. She was preparing, testing the waters, even hinting at the violence to come. Jennifer's next move was even more telling. She arranged for her 3 children to spend the night at her parents' home. To outsiders, it may have looked like a normal family arrangement, but to investigators, it was a clear sign Jennifer was deliberately clearing the stage for what she intended to do next. On the evening of September 20th, the fragile facade of the Johnson-Gledhill marriage finally shattered. Matthew, who had recently discovered the truth about Jennifer's affair, confronted her. The house, once filled with silence, erupted into shouting. Years of anger, betrayal, and resentment exploded in a violent argument. Witnesses later reported hearing the commotion, a bitter fight that carried late into the night. Jennifer would later confess that Matthew had confronted her directly, demanding answers about her infidelity. The fight was raw, brutal, and emotional. But when the house fell quiet and Matthew finally drifted to sleep, Jennifer made the decision that would end his life. In the early hours of September 21st, 2024, while Matthew lay vulnerable in their master bedroom, Jennifer carried out her plan. Using his own 9mm handgun, she shot her husband in the head as he slept. The man who had survived years of military service, dangerous missions, and the risks of combat was killed in the place he should have been safest, his own home, by the person he trusted most. But Jennifer's cold calculations didn't end there. What followed was a series of chillingly methodical steps to cover her tracks. She dragged Matthew's lifeless body into a rooftop storage container, slid it down the stairs, and loaded it into the family's minivan. She smashed his phone, severing any digital trace of his last moments. To conceal the crime even further, she drove his truck to a nearby neighborhood, abandoning it just blocks away from their home. Then came the cleanup. Jennifer returned to the house and began scrubbing away the evidence of her crime. She bleached the bedroom walls, scrubbed the carpet, and worked tirelessly to erase the stains that told the story of what she had done. She even ordered a brand new mattress online, an order placed just 3 days after the murder, delivered 2 days later, replacing the blood-soaked bed where Matthew had been killed. But even the most carefully constructed plans leave cracks. And Jennifer's critical mistake was about to be exposed.
Later that same night, Jennifer went to her lover's home. Instead of keeping her secret buried, she confessed everything. In chilling detail, she told him how she had shot Matthew, how she had moved the body, and how she had cleaned the crime scene. Her calmness was unsettling, almost detached, as if she were recounting something ordinary. Her lover noticed bruises on her arms and body. Bruises, Jennifer casually explained, came from burying her husband and cleaning the house afterward. That confession, made in a moment of arrogance or carelessness, would ultimately unravel everything.
The investigation and the lover turns witness. In the aftermath of Matthew's death, Jennifer believed she had everything under control.
The children were at her parents' home. The crime scene had been scrubbed with bleach, and a new mattress had replaced the old. To her, the plan was seamless. But the truth of murder has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep it is buried. Jennifer's arrogance showed itself almost immediately. On September 22nd, just 1 day after killing her husband, she went back to her lover and spoke with unnerving calm about what she had done. He remembered her words vividly, her lack of remorse, and the chilling way she justified her actions. During their conversations, Jennifer referred to Matthew in the past tense, even before he was reported missing. It was as if she had already erased him from existence. But her lover was unsettled. The woman he thought he knew had transformed into someone unrecognizable, a cold-blooded killer speaking casually about burying her husband. At first, he kept her secret, torn between fear and disbelief, but soon fear won. He began documenting everything: screenshots of text messages, secret recordings of their phone calls. He collected them all, creating a timeline of Jennifer's shocking confessions. One of the most haunting recordings captured Jennifer saying something that would later shake investigators to their core. "Wow, if you think I could even hurt a fly. Like he's not a person. He wasn't a person anymore. He wasn't Matt." Her voice was detached, almost casual, as though she had convinced herself that the man she murdered was no longer human, no longer someone deserving of empathy. She went even further. In another conversation, Jennifer compared herself to the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, saying, "I've always preached that I was like the Queen of Hearts in my past lives because I'm like off with their heads. If we could just round up the scum of this earth and put them on an island, or just kill them all, I could shape this country back to a good place." The words painted a picture of someone unhinged, someone whose moral compass had completely fractured. Her lover, horrified, finally realized what he had to do. He couldn't keep this secret any longer, not when a man's life had been taken, and not when Jennifer showed no signs of regret. Meanwhile, Jennifer tried to keep up appearances. On September 27th, 6 days after the murder, she finally reported Matthew missing. Her story to the police was simple. Matthew had told her he would be gone for a week and not to call him, but the story quickly began to crumble. The Utah National Guard had already raised red flags when Matthew failed to report for duty on September 23rd. To them, Matthew wasn't the kind of man who would simply disappear without a trace. Something was wrong, and they knew it. Behind the scenes, Jennifer's lover prepared to expose her. On October 2nd, 2024, he went to police with everything: screenshots of texts, hours of recorded phone calls, and first-hand knowledge of Jennifer's shocking confessions. It was the breakthrough investigators desperately needed. By this time, police had already been suspicious. When they searched the Johnson-Gledhill home, the signs of a cover-up were everywhere. The master bedroom reeked of bleach. The carpet showed a large blood stain hidden under the bed frame. Blood was also found on the slats of the bed, exactly where Jennifer had described the shooting in her confession, and the brand new mattress sitting in the room spoke louder than words. Phone records confirmed she had ordered it on September 24th, just 3 days after Matthew's murder. Even more damning was the GPS data pulled from Jennifer's phone. Investigators traced her movements on the morning of September 21st and 22nd. The data showed her stopping near the area where Matthew's truck was abandoned, and then later traveling north, toward Davis County, exactly where she had told her lover she buried his body. By the time police pieced together the digital trail, the physical evidence, and the recorded confessions, one thing was undeniable: Jennifer Gledhill had murdered her husband. On October 2nd, 2024, she was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and obstruction of justice, but the case was far from over. Investigators would soon uncover more players in this twisted story, people Jennifer trusted most, who may have helped her try to cover up her crime.
The parents, the cover-up, and the missing body. As investigators dug deeper, they realised Jennifer had not acted alone in the aftermath of the crime. The trail of evidence pointed to her parents, Thomas and Rosalie Gledhill, who would soon be implicated in one of the most disturbing attempts to cover up a murder in Utah's history. Police learned that after Matthew's death, Thomas, 71, and Rosalie, 67, had spent hours at Jennifer's home. Initially, they told investigators they had only dropped by briefly to pick up some clothing, but phone records and witness statements painted a different story. They had been inside the house for over 5 hours during the critical period when Jennifer was cleaning the crime scene. The parents' actions raised immediate suspicions. Investigators discovered that Rosalie had purchased the new mattress that replaced the one soaked in Matthew's blood. Even more suspicious was the fact that her phone had been remotely reset, erasing all location data during the days surrounding the cleanup. It was a deliberate attempt to conceal her involvement. Thomas, meanwhile, made a slip during questioning that hinted at his knowledge of the crime. When asked about the master bedroom, he said, "I did not go in where the incident happened." The choice of words was damning, because investigators had never told him where the murder had occurred. His answer revealed he knew far more than he was admitting. During a search of the parents' home, investigators found even more incriminating evidence. Hidden inside a plastic storage tote wrapped in a child's onesie was the box for a Glock 19X, the very same model Jennifer had shown her lover just days before the killing. The detail was chilling. Not only had Jennifer carried out the crime with a family firearm, but her parents had apparently tried to hide evidence connected to it. The arrests came swiftly. On October 24, 2024, Thomas and Rosalie Gledhill were charged with multiple counts of obstruction of justice. For prosecutors, it was proof of how far Jennifer's family was willing to go to protect her, and how deep the deception in this case truly ran. Yet, despite the arrests, one haunting question remained unanswered. Where was Matthew Johnson's body? Extensive searches had already begun across northern Utah. Teams of more than 70 people, law enforcement officers, volunteers, and even Matthew's own military comrades, scoured areas from Davis County to the Utah-Idaho border. Drones, dogs, and ground crews combed through forests, fields, and riverbeds. But each search ended the same way, empty-handed. Months passed, and Matthew's remains were never found. The lack of a body weighed heavily on his family and his fellow soldiers. Kevin Thompson, Matthew's longtime friend, described sleepless nights spent wondering if they had missed something. If somewhere, just out of sight, Matthew was waiting to be brought home. Another Green Beret, John Hash, who had served with Matthew for 12 years, expressed his shock and grief. Having had Jen in our home before, breaking bread with them, and to learn she was responsible for his death, it was shocking, frankly. We trusted her. The tragedy deepened when investigators found additional physical evidence linking Jennifer to the crime. A storage container, identical to the one Jennifer had used to move Matthew's body, was discovered floating in water. Inside was Matthew's blood. It was proof she had transported him using that very container. Yet even with that damning discovery, the exact location of his body remained a mystery. For prosecutors, the missing body made their case more challenging, but not impossible. They had the confessions, the GPS data, the blood evidence, and the cover-up involving Jennifer's parents. Together, it painted a picture that was as disturbing as it was complete. Jennifer had killed her husband. Her parents had tried to help hide it. And somewhere in northern Utah, Matthew Johnson, a decorated soldier and devoted father, remained buried in an unmarked grave. Trial, charges, and the aftermath. By the time investigators had finished piecing together the evidence, one thing was undeniable. Jennifer Gledhill had orchestrated a cold-blooded murder. But as the case moved toward trial, more chilling details came to light. Details that revealed Jennifer's motives went far beyond resentment or anger. They were rooted in greed. Detectives discovered that in the weeks before Matthew's death, Jennifer had been meticulously studying his life insurance policies. She accessed the couple's financial accounts repeatedly, searching for details of the coverage. What she found shocked even the investigators. Matthew's death could potentially bring her $1.5 million in insurance payouts. For prosecutors, it was the final piece of the puzzle. Jennifer wasn't just motivated by a failing marriage or her new lover. She was motivated by money. On October 2nd, 2024, Jennifer was officially charged with first-degree murder, desecration of a human body, obstruction of justice, and 2 counts of tampering with evidence. The charges reflected not only her crime, but the elaborate steps she had taken to cover it up. Her parents, Thomas and Rosalie, were each charged with multiple counts of obstruction of justice, accused of helping Jennifer replace the mattress, conceal evidence, and mislead investigators. Their courtroom appearances stunned the community. The image of aging parents standing trial for assisting in their son-in-law's murder was almost too surreal to comprehend, but the weight of the tragedy was felt most deeply by those left behind. Matthew's 3 children, now without their father, were taken into protective custody. For them, the world they once knew, of a loving father and what seemed to be a stable home, was shattered forever. Even in death, Matthew was unable to return home, his body still missing despite months of exhaustive searching. The courtroom testimony was haunting. Jurors heard Jennifer's own words, recorded by her lover, where she described Matthew as not a person anymore, and compared herself to the Queen of Hearts, with the power to decide who lived and who died. They saw the GPS evidence tracing her path north, and the damning images of the bleach-stained carpet, the hidden mattress box, and the bloody container found floating in water. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. The betrayal struck hardest among Matthew's military brothers. Green Berets who had fought alongside him in combat found themselves grappling with the unthinkable. That one of their own had been murdered, not by an enemy on the battlefield, but by the very person he trusted most at home. Many attended the hearings, their uniforms a silent reminder of the loyalty and honor Matthew had lived by. In the media, the case was called one of Utah's darkest domestic tragedies. It was a story of loyalty betrayed, of love corrupted, and of greed overpowering humanity. For many, the most chilling element wasn't just the murder itself, but Jennifer's lack of remorse. To the very end, she carried herself with a cold detachment, as though her husband's death was merely a chapter she had closed in her own life. As the gavel came down, the charges ensured Jennifer would face life in prison without the possibility of parole. For her parents, though their sentences were less severe, the damage was irreparable. Their names, too, were forever tied to the cover-up of their daughter's crime. But the greatest injustice remains unresolved. To this day, Matthew Johnson's body has never been recovered. His family and brothers in arms still wait for answers, still search for the closure that may never come. His children, now growing up without a father, live with the scars of a crime that stole not just a life, but their entire sense of safety and trust. In the end, Jennifer Gledhill's crime wasn't just the murder of a man. It was the destruction of a family, the betrayal of a community, and the silencing of a soldier who had dedicated his life to protecting others. The echoes of that betrayal will haunt everyone connected to this case for years to come. This is the story of Jennifer Gledhill and the murder of Matthew Johnson, a case where love turned to betrayal, loyalty turned to greed, and justice, though served, still feels incomplete without the return of Matthew's body.